this video is to help you when sewing up and finishing Muriel the Guide Dog. So I'm very proud to say that Muriel the Guide Dog is an official licensed guide dog product, and the kit is available in 2 sizes. So you can go for the standard size Muriel, or you can go for the mini size Muriel kit. The techniques that I'm going to show you in terms of sewing up are relevant to both. I'm going to be sewing up the standard size dog and adding off the finishing touches to putting that coat in place. It would be exactly the same techniques if you are indeed making the mini. And inside one of these kits, you get absolutely everything that you need to be able to actually crochet your dog. So you're going to get 75 grams in the larger kit, 25 in the smaller kit of the oatmeal colour for that golden Labrador. Then you're going to get 25 grams of the sapphire in order to make the jacket. You will get the small label that we'll be sewing on at the end in this video. Then you'll get your crochet hook. You'll get a skinny wool needle, so a slimmer wool needle than our standard ones in order to sew your label on. You'll get your nose and your eye threads, and then you will also get your stuffing included in that kit as well. And that's what I'm going to need here, because I'm going to be stuffing and sewing up my guide dog. So here I've got the body, I've got the head, I've made 2 ears, 4 legs, and a tail in addition to the jacket. Now, if you are totally new to crochet, then what you need to do is you need to go and watch the Learn to Crochet videos from the very start. And that way you'll be mastering your double crochet stitch and working in the round. And when you finish the pieces, come back and watch this video in order to help you with the sewing up. So using the stuffing contained in your box, stuff your pieces. Now with the body, you want to stuff the whole of this section here. And a big tip from me is your crochet hook. It's brilliant for obviously being a soft grip handle when you are working those stitches, but it's actually also an invaluable tool when it comes to putting the stuffing in as well. So turn your hook round and use the heel of that hook to actually push this stuffing into place, in combination obviously with using your fingers as well. So you want to fill up the whole of the body section. And you'll see here, I've actually used a stitch marker in mine just to mark where the centre of my tummy is. Now, you'll have seen that as a tip in your pattern that's included in your kit. It shows you where you could add a marker to mark the centre of the tummy. You don't need to use something as fancy as a stitch marker like this if you don't have one. If you are new to crochet, all you could do is break off a little bit of your sapphire yarn, and you could just tie a little bit around there. It'll just help you mark where the centre of that tummy is when it comes to sewing up later on. So I've filled the whole of my body. I'm going to fill the whole of my head in the same way as well. Like that. And then we're not going to put any stuffing in the ears. And then with the legs, we're just going to put a little bit of stuffing into the more circular bulbous bit at the bottom. So get you a little bit of stuffing. Again, use the heel of your hook and push that in until you've got a little bit of stuffing there at the bottom. Now you will find that you've got more stuffing than you need in your kit, so don't feel like you've got to fit all of that stuffing inside your dog. You will have more than you need, so just make sure that you are happy with the stuffing. You're using a pure wool yarn, so you want them to feel quite soft and supple. You want to feel that movement in the fabric. You don't want to push them so that they've got every single piece of stuffing in. And as I've explained, but I just want to make it really clear, there's only stuffing in that end of the legs like that. This is quite essential to making sure that your guide dog will sit up nicely in a position on a shelf. So the last little bit to stuff is just to put a tiny bit in that tail so that tail will sit up in a nice position at the end. So just a tiny pinch into the tail. Right, so whether you're doing the mini version or whether you're doing the large version, we're going to be sewing up in exactly the same order. So what you need is your body first, and you're going to need your wool needle that will be taped into the inside of your kit. So you'll find there's a little sticker just on the inside wall of your kit where your wool needle will be secured for you. Now, taking the length that you'll leave on when you've made the parts, and that is a really good tip from me, is leave yourself a nice length so that then you can sew up using those lengths. If you haven't left lengths on your pieces, then all you need to do is rejoin yarn, and I'll show you how to do that in a second. So you gather those stitches that were your last round in order to close that off on your body. And I'm just going to do that again slowly so that you can see it on the head. So to get a nice neat finish, when you're gathering the stitches together like that, all you need to do is sew in and out through that last round of stitches like that. And then you sew through and pull it tight to secure it off. And what I'm just going to quickly show you while I've got the chance is, say that you'd left yourself not a long enough end on a piece. So I'm going to snip a bit off this leg just to show you what I mean. So say when you've finished your piece of crochet, you've left yourself a short length like that. That's not going to be enough to sew your piece on. So all you would do is you'd get yourself a length of that colour, and you would take that and sew in and through the piece to the top where you're going to sew it on, pull it through like that, and then just sew in and around a stitch twice like that. That will then be really secure, so you can just tuck in your small end before you carry on sewing up with that one. So if you do need to rejoin a piece, whether that's to the body or the head or the legs, you'll be able to do it using that method there. So back to our body. First, we're going to take our bodies and we're going to sew our heads onto our bodies. So what you want to do is, if you haven't put that marker in place, there is an obvious place that is the front of the tummy. So both bodies will have a pear-like shape. This is obviously a larger one, but the standard one is the same, obviously just a little bit smaller, that there will be a pear shaped, and this is a tummy that you want to have at the front. So then you take your head, and it has a definite forehead, the shape that you've crocheted as well. You line that up with your body, turn the head backwards, and then all you're going to do is sew a couple of stitches between the head like that, and then down onto the body like that. Then flip that head upwards, and then you can sew right the way around to create a little neckline. So all I'm going to do is sew between the top of my body and the base of my head. And obviously the thing about making the mini version is you will have far fewer stitches, so you won't be doing as much sewing up as you sew these two pieces together. There we go. So head attached to the body. And to fasten off a piece, so once you've done some sewing up, all you need to do, very similar to when we rejoined in that yarn, is come through like this with your yarn, and then sew in and around a stitch. And I would do that twice just to make sure it's very secure, and then all you can do is snip off the end like that on the surface of the fabric. So that is our head attached to our body. Now for the legs. So what you want to do with the legs, just to make life a little bit easier and make sure that that stuffing's really nice and securely inside, is you fold them flat like that, and then just sew in between both rounds like that with a few stitches first, so that we know that that's sewn closed. And then take the front legs, so effectively the ones that are going to go between the body and the head. Take your front legs, using the centre of your tummy and the centre of your head as a guide. You want to position one leg right into the seam between your head and the body. And once again, this applies whether you're on the mini or whether you're on the larger one that I've got here. Exactly the same method of putting it together. So you just position in between the head and the body like that, and sew across the top of it. And then to make sure it's very, very secure, because obviously this is a character that's likely to be well loved if you are making it for a child, make sure you then sew across the bottom as well like that. And then in and around a stitch to secure, and snip that off. And same again on the other side. So now it's time for our back legs. So start with exactly the same thing of sewing the top closed. And then to make sure that your little dog will sit up, if you want to put it on a shelf or have it as a mascot on a desk or something like that, what's all important is the angle that we're going to sew these back legs on. So take your dog like this. This obviously marks the center of the body and the head, and we put those front legs in either side. And imagine a straight line coming down the head and the body like that and coming into the bottom of the body there. Then what you want to do is divide the bottom of this body into thirds. So that's that line coming down from the center of the head and body, and then the line would be here and here that create the thirds, and that's the line that we want to sew these legs on. Because if you sew the legs on like that, it means that when it sits upon a shelf, it will sit and splay forward, and then it will absolutely balance itself and sit up like a good girl in terms of sitting on the shelf. It'll be a well-trained dog rather than one that flops over all the time. So position that leg in like that. And then all you're going to do is sew like that down one side. And the same trick that we did on the front ones, we want it to be a very strong join. So we'll do the same thing on the other side. You can remove your tummy marker if you do still have that in. You won't need that anymore as we put this last leg on. So this is the one where I rejoined yarn, so I've just tucked in that end. I'll sew across the top, into position, central line, and then break the bottom into thirds like that. So limbs in place, now it's time to put on those all important ears. So when you've got your ears finished, you will be finishing having decreased down like this. So you actually start crocheting from the tip and then you increase out to make it get wider and decrease down. So the last thing that you just need to do is gather the stitches in the same way that we did for the body and the head. So you've got that last little round of stitches there. Gather those together like that. And then it's time to create the personality of your dog with these ears. And this obviously, more so I think than anything else that you're going to do, will create the personality of your dog. So I'm going to sew mine very much in a downwards position. Obviously you could sew them into an upwards position if you want to, or even mismatch them. But what I'm going to do is go for those classic floppy ears of a Labrador. So I've folded it over on the front like that. And then because I've got this thread coming from the back, I'll actually set off sewing this into place from the back. Now, if you wanted to, because you're feeling a little bit unsure about this, because this in truth is probably the most tricky bit of sewing up that we're doing when making this dog, you could always pin them into position first if you wanted to, before you then carry on. So all I'm going to do is sew between the head and the ear like that. From the back first, coming up towards the front. Onto the top of the head. And because I want mine to sit in that nice position folded forward, I'm actually then going to sew through the ear a couple of times just to fix that position in. So I'm going to sew right the way through the side like that. And that means that that will then stay in place. Now you can go down and also then sew the ear from the other side if you want to. So you can sew it from the bottom upwards. So again, you know that's really firmly attached in place. And fasten it off in the same way. And then when it comes to the other side, just try and get it as symmetrical as possible. But know that the kind of personality of your dog will come out if you have got them slightly mismatched anyway. So don't worry too much about them being absolutely perfectly symmetrical. We all know what dogs look like when they put their head to one side and cock one ear. So don't worry about them being absolutely symmetrical, but all I would do would be to line them up approximately the same length here. and then do exactly what we did before. So like that, and I'm just going to sew through like I did on the other side to fix the ear in that floppy forwards position. So first with the tail, then let's do the eyes and the nose. So with the tail, you did a chain start, so it was open at the wider end, and you'll have decreased down to a tip like this. So just gather that final couple of stitches on the end like that. And then again, sew those back down and through. Then with your other end, where you've put a little bit of stuffing in, a big tip from me to get the position of the tail right would be to sit up your dog first. So do you see how what you've got, because we went for that angles of the thirds on the bottom of the body, is your legs will splay forward and balance the tummy. Then you can put the front paws on the knees of the dog, and the dog will sit up nicely like that. And so all you then need to do is check that you feel the tail is in the right position once it's sitting down. Check that it's symmetrical between the legs and down that back line, and then just sew right the way round your starting chain to fix that in place. So your tail's in place. And now it's time to finish off our dogs with the eyes before we go on to doing the coat. So included in your kit, you will have two lengths, a length of black and a length of mushroom. And I'm going to put in the eyes first. So with your length of black, come up and through like this, drawing in that end until it disappears. And then all you need to do is come down 2 to 3 rounds. So when you can count them, it'd be 1, 2, 3. You can count about how long those eyes would be. Like that. And then across in one go. You don't need to break the yarn, just travel across on the inside of the head to do them on the other side. Knowing that you've got enough yarn that if you're not happy first time with where they are, you can obviously always cut them off and go again. Now I've done 2 wraps there. You can go for more wraps if you want your dog to appear even cuter, so it'll have slightly bigger eyes. I've just done 2 wraps like that. You can snip that off, and like I said, you've got enough length of black that if you're not happy with them, you could go again if you wanted to. Then when it comes to sewing on the nose, all you need to do is bring the mushroom length this time through, and we're going to draw a little bit of a triangle. So come up like that, and then back down to where you started. And then just sew in between those 2 lines that you've just done in order to fill in Muriel's nose. So just sew across. Now, if you are somebody who's quite creative and you want to add to your kit, you can obviously get things like safety eyes. You can even get safety noses for dogs if you don't want to go for this embroidery method. But all you must remember if you're going to use things like safety noses and safety eyes is they're not suitable for under 3s. Despite their name, they're not suitable for under 3s. And also you must make sure that you put them in before you actually sew up the head. So you'd need to put them in while the head is still open before you do those final stitches. So I've sewn that nice triangle in between the 2 lines that I did first. I'm just going to add a couple more into the top so it's nice and full. And then snip that off in exactly the same way. And now it's time to fit her for her jacket. So obviously that is Muriel the Labrador completed. But what makes her very special is the fact that she is a guide dog, so she will also wear her a blue jacket. So here is the jacket, and just to talk you through the structure of the big one. So the smaller one is much simpler. You're actually just going to be making this one piece, and then we've actually crocheted around the edge. So as you can see here, I've crocheted right the way around the edge. Now I'm going to pull this back a little bit just so I can show you that technique, because that is one that's maybe a little bit more unusual that you won't find in the standard videos. So I just want to show you quickly. This would apply again to the big jacket that I've got here, or to the small one. Is what you're going to make is this almost heart-shaped piece. So you crochet a small piece here and you join them together into a larger round. You create this almost heart-shaped piece that you can flatten off. And then all you do to crochet around the edge, which will just give us a nice, neat finish to the jacket, is you go into the edge like that and work that double crochet stitch that you've been working throughout. And it acts, I guess, a bit like a jacket's edging that it would have. It would have that piped edge on a jacket. It gives us a nice defined edge to be able to crochet the straps into, which is what I'm going to do now to show you. So with this end having gone all the way around the edge, I've actually broken yarn, and I'm going to just sew this end in. Like that. And then you're going to need your crochet hook and your ball of sapphire for this next bit to put these straps in place. So take this shape here, and this is the base of her jacket and this is the top, and those slip stitches you want to appear like V's all the way around the outside. That is the right side forward. So then pop her jacket on, and obviously that dip between the two pieces forms the back of the neck. And then what we're going to do is we're actually going to crochet the jacket in place. So approximately halfway down the jacket, and the exact position will obviously be entirely up to you, we're going to do the strap that goes across the middle. So just put your crochet hook in halfway down like that. We're going to slip stitch into position, so yarn over and bring it over like that, and then chain 18. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, and 18. And this is where we will be fitting her for her jacket. So you need to put the jacket into position, and this strap will come across the front like that. And all you want to then do is slip stitch over to the other side. So come across and slip stitch in over here. Like that. And then you can turn straight around and double crochet back across that chain. So all you need to do is go back across, doing a double crochet stitch into each one of those chain stitches like that. And that will then fit that tummy strap into place. Now, if you want your jacket to be removable, maybe you're making this for someone who would like to play with it, all you would need to do is, rather than slip stitching into the other side, just turn straight back round and crochet down that chain and make one on either side. That way you could just tie them together in the middle if you wanted to, and it would be fully removable. So it'd be a bit more like the superhero cape kind of fit, that you'd be able to just knot them together and remove it later on, because this will permanently fix this in place. So double crochet right the way back across that chain, and then again slip stitch back into the coat where you came from like that, and then we'll sew in those ends. So that's the tummy strap in. And then the last one is to do the one that goes around the neck. So all you need to do, again, position it into the same place like that, and then we're going to slip stitch in and chain 10 this time. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. And do exactly the same thing. Curve it round, slip into this side, and then double crochet back again. Then the final thing to do is obviously sew these ends in so that they've gone away and they're secure. I've done them both together there to save time. You could obviously sew them in individually if you wanted to, but as they've come from the same point, I find it easiest to put them in together. So that leaves the last remaining thing to do to sew our guide dog's label in place. So all you need to do there is decide where you would like to place it on your dog's jacket. I'm going to sew it onto this side here. Get yourself a length of your sapphire that you've been using for your jacket and your wool needle in exactly the same way. Now, if you are somebody who is someone that sews or has cotton, obviously you could opt to sew this on separately if you wanted to, but you are able to use your wool and your wool needle that you've got included in your kit. And all I've done to secure this in place would be I come through with the wool and I secure it around a stitch. Then I'm going to sew through the label like that. And then back down and through that stitch that I've come out of. Then underneath, through and up like that. And the same thing in all four corners. So just push your wool needle through the label. And I've just tacked it into all four corners. You could sew all the way around the edge if you wanted to. Again, the choice is yours to customise, but I find it secure enough and neat enough just by coming through. There we go. And once you're happy with that, snip off that final end and Muriel the Guide Dog is complete with jacket like that.